Welcome to Inquisitive. Thank you for listening. For our first episode, I invited Serena. She is a working student of PUP, major in Philippinology. I had the chance to listen to the introduction of her thesis a couple months ago, and I instantly became interested. In fact, Serena's thesis is one of the reasons I decided to finally create a podcast. So join me and Serena Magiliw as we talk about her thesis, LGBTQ legitimate resources, misconceptions of transgenders, and a bit about pre-colonial Philippines.
Ayan. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and thank you, Paolo, for inviting me, of course. It's such a pleasure to share the research that I've been working on since like a couple of months already, since this is my undergrad thesis. So yeah, I'm writing it since last year, like at the end of the month last year. So yung research ko, mahaba yung title. So the title is Pagsusuri sa Kagayaan at Isang Pag-ibig sa Panahon ng All-Out War ni Stephanie Jack Alvarez bilang sipat sa kalagayan ng mga transpinay. So this is a literary criticism or a review of Stephanie Jack Alvarez's first novel. Stephanie is a transpinay, currently based in Saudi Arabia. So, purpose din ng why I pursued this research is to have a more deep understanding of the Filipinos conceptualization of transgender in the Filipino society. At the same time, um, to have further studies on trans representation on literature, especially in Philippine literature, because publishing in the Philippines is very gendered. So we don't get a lot of works uh, by LGBT folks, written by LGBT folks for LGBT folks.
What are the common misconceptions of Filipinos towards transgender?
Kasi misconception, kasi alam natin na natawag dyan, widely used sa Philippines is bakla. So it's a local term, 'di ba, for homosexuals. Merong bakla sa kalakhan ng mga taga-Tagalog, and then there's also bayot in the Visayan region, and then there's also bantut in the Mindanao region. But there's so many terms pa, marami pang salita from other languages of the Philippines that they have their own parang katawagan doon sa experience na ito. Another misconception for sure is because of our colonial history, our ancestors that give high regards to people with transgender experience was erased by the colonizers, which are the Spaniards. Diba? So, na-demonize ang ating mga babaylan. Sila ay tinuring ng mga sexual beings kasi hindi ito nag-a-align sa belief nila ng Christianity. Tapos, tinuring din ito na isang sakit, na isang mental disorder. So, isa yun sa mga misconception pagdating sa transgender in Philippine society. Doon na sa after na nung colonial, nagkaroon na ng colonial era sa atin.
Our times now, it seems like transgender is a modern concept. And that is also one of the reasons kung bakit parang hindi siya sineseryoso, especially nung mga older generation. Kasi actually ngayon lang siya nagkakaroon ng conversation about it, diba? Between the younger generations and also our generations din. So, based on your research, based on your thesis, how what is the gap between yung pre-colonialism tapos yung yung ngayon, is it really a modern concept now? How is it different now than before?
Kung pag-uusapan natin yung pagiging bago, actually it's not new. But but we can look at it as a Western concept. Yes, yung pagiging yung tawag na transgender, kasi it still has that familiar concept from our ethno-linguistic groups, no, from our regions, from our different regions here in the Philippines. Kasi just like what I've mentioned a while ago, pre-colonial Philippines, meron silang mataas na pagpapahalaga or they give high regards with people who have feminine and masculine qualities, who practice, male individuals who dresses as women, who has traits of femininity. Kasi kapag meron kang qualities ng isang babae, ikaw ay malapit or ikaw ay isang mediator with their gods, di ba? So, ikaw ay isang spiritual na entity na kayang makipag-ugnayan sa mga Diyos. Also, um, gender, if translated here in Filipino, means kasarian from the root word sari. So sari means sari-sari. So madami. So it's it's diversity kasi marami. Ganyan. So hindi lang dalawa ang ating gender. Kaya siya nanggaling sa kasarian kasi marami siyang pwedeng tahakin. Also, with the difference kasi with trans and yung counterpart nito na cis, kung malapit siya doon sa ating experience talaga. Trans, the prefix trans means doon or basta wala dito. So kaya tayo may transgender. Wala dito, wala sa limitations, wala sa construct ang aking kasarian. Compared to cisgender people, cis just means here, in the now, as in nandito. So yun yung parang difference, no? So cisgender people, andito sila sa binary system, while transgender people, yung kasarian nila ay wala doon sa kahon ng cis heteronormativity. Itong pag-aangkop natin o pag-appropriate natin ng katawag ng transgender ay niyakap din ng ating mga trans sisters dito sa Pilipinas by the Society of Trans Women of the Philippines. So, kinoin nila yung term na transpinay to localize the transgender experiences of transgender people here in the Philippines, dito sa environment ng Pilipinas. Kasi hindi ganon makaka-capture ng salitang transgender yung pinaka-experience at struggles ng mga Pilipino. Kaya may pagtatangka na gumawa ng term na transpinay, ganon. At the same time, kung paano din umusbong yung mga tawag sa mga bakla, sa mga bayot, sa mga Becky, Bex, Mama, Mudra. Naghahanap tayo ng madaming words para ma-affirm kung ano talaga yung nararamdaman natin at yung experience natin. And bakla is really, has become a spectrum of identity. So it's a gender identity, it's a sexual orientation, it's an expression. Isa siyang spectrum talaga ng pagkakakilanlan. Kaya white is na ang bakla. Naging derogatory na siya, pero nagamit na rin ito as a reclamation. So that's just, a few points of the history and the complex history of transgender here in the Philippines.
Evolved talaga siya, and it's a good thing. It's really a good thing that we are at least familiar with the terms kahit na hindi natin siya alam yung tamang definition. The familiarity is not there when I was growing up, and also just like what you said, yung experience nga doon yung hindi masyadong clear, which is why I think maraming tao din yung hindi sila educated, hindi rin nila alam yung differences, and most of the time may pushback talaga. Para dun sa mga tao na gustong matutunan pa yung experiences and also yung mga facts about transgenders, where can we get yung accurate sources?
Whatever yung pinaka-accessible, if we have, transgender identifying friends or family members, they can be a very reliable source of the transgender experience dahil hindi mo naman kailangan magkaroon ng degree or whatever para masabi kung paano mamuhay ang isang transgender. But organizations, you can contact STRAP or the Society of Trans Women of the Philippines. Sila ang pinakaunang transgender advocating, actually for trans women advocating organization in the Philippines. There are also trans-masculine groups that you can, you know, search. There's also Bahaghari, yun ay pambansang demokratikong organisasyon naman ng mga LGBT. So, mas militant organization ng, ng LGBT and, you know, fighting for the struggle, uh, our visibility here in the country. And there's also so many LGBT organizations from schools, from universities, from colleges, non profit organizations na nagsusulong ng karapatan ng mga studies of the LGBT. Marami, parang, you know, you just have to look for them kasi nandun lang naman sila. Hindi naman sila mahirap hanapin. Maybe I can recommend, especially in the academe, is Dr. Jaya Jacobo, Brenda Fajardo, Mikey Incon Campbell, who are really pushing for transgender studies, especially of the transpinay experience. And there's so many activists, advocates, artists, and academics that you can follow.
Trans people, they have to go through medical journey na wala siya when it comes to lesbians and also gays.
It's a very sensitive topic for transgender people. Transitioning kasi ay, especially pag-uusapan natin ang medical transition, it's not for everyone. No, meron pang levels of transitioning. Meron yung personal, meron yung societal, personal transitioning is yung pagtanggap mo sa sarili mo kung ano yung pagkakakilanlang pangkasarian mo o yung how you identify yourself, pagtanggap, self-acceptance of who you are. While societal transitioning is yung pag-engage na ng ibang tao sa labas mo, you know, yung pagpapakilala mo na sa ibang tao on who you really are kasi na-identify mo na yung sarili mo. While yung last stage na lang for transgender people is the medical transition stage where you affirm what's in your mind, what's in your heart, sa kung ano na yung gusto mong makita ng mga tao. Like, gusto mo nang makamit yung syempre yung construct natin as standard for the society na kapag babae ka, kailangan meron ka nitong klaseng katawan. So, hindi siya accessible sa lahat ng pagkakataon dahil issue ng finances, hindi naman madaling mag-transition medically at hindi ganoon ka-accessible dahil wala tayong mga hindi ganoon karami ang resources natin pagdating sa mga medical professionals that advises professionally for transitioning. Kaya yun yung nagiging yun ang malaking difference. Kasi may urge or merong demand for transgender people to pass. Dahil meron tayong notion sa society kung ano dapat ang expression o dapat ang itsura ng isang babae, at ng isang lalaki. Nag-struggle din ng mga transgender dahil hindi naman yun ang meron kami. Hindi naman yun ang meron sila para matanggap kaagad-agad ng mga tao. So, they undergo so many transitions just to be accepted by society.
Yeah. How can we start supporting? Especially yun nga, like personally me, I don't have any transgender friends, which is why there are a lot of times na I'm really trying to be careful how to ask. What are the ways for us to really show our support and to avoid hurting other people?
Magsisimula, kasi actually hindi mo naman talaga kailangan maging well-versed ka agad sa mga issues ng LGBT or ng iba pang minorities. Magsisimula yan. The very basic quality is to be inclusive and acknowledge that diversity that we have, na magkakaiba talaga na lahat ng tao.
How do you see a fully understanding Filipino society? Parang vision board, how do you envision it na, let's say, may, as in super duper nag-progress talaga tayo, which means everyone is inclusive. So how does that look like for you?
Siguro yung pinakamalapit na reality na meron tayo. Since 2022 elections is happening.
Yeah.
At isang malaking gateway yon sa kung ano magiging klaseng buhay ang mayroon tayo for the next 6 years. I think a fully understanding Filipino society votes for the masses and not for the politicians. They vote for the future generation and not for the interests of, other forces in society na hindi nakakatulong. And a fully understanding Filipino society, hashtag never forgets.
What's your plan? Kasi this is a really very helpful thesis for me. Well, hindi naman ako academe, pero personally, I think this is really something that will help any student or anyone in the future who's looking for a source na pwede nilang ibigay sa graduate school. So, I'm curious about it. Like, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, of course, syempre, sinimulan na natin. So, papatuloy lang. I'll just continue telling trans narratives and experiences through my art, especially in my activism, as well as, dismantling these gendered constructs in society. Nadalhin lang, sige, dalhin natin ng kabaklaan kahit saan. Dahil yun ang gigiba sa, sa very squared, sa very macho, very feudal, very patriarchal society that we have. So, trans liberation now. The future is trans. Actually,
Yes.
trans is now, it's present, it's already happening. So, walang ibang pupuntahan kundi, ipagpatuloy ito at isulong ng isulong. Tuloy lang ang rampa.
So, ayun, are you visible in social media?
Of course, I'm visible on social media. You can follow me on my Instagram at mix.serena. Hindi po ako influencer, so huwag po kayo mag-expect na masyadong maraming content. Pero, yeah, I post there my performances, my activism. I also have a Facebook page. O, di ba may Facebook page tayo? Serena Magiliw sa Facebook. Follow niyo din po ang Concerned Artists of the Philippines. Yeah, I'm also part of Concerned Artists of the Philippines. And then, for the future engagements, abangan nyo lang po sa social media.
Yeah. Excited na rin ako pag nag-open na lahat kasi I'm pretty sure na everyone will be having their own events then. So, what is your short message to everyone who's listening?
Okay, so message ko sa mga nakikinig ngayon. Hello, Philippines, and hello, world. Malayo na po ang nilakbay. Marami na rin progress tayo pagdating sa usapin ng kasarian. Malaki ang responsibilidad natin, bawat mamamayang Pilipino, sa kung paano tatakbo yung susunod na mga taon natin. Sa kung paano mas magiging visible ang mga tulad ko, mga tulad ng mga transpinay sa Pilipinas, sa kung paano klaseng buhay ang magkakaroon ng mga mahihirap, ang mga estudyante, ang mga manggagawa. So, doon nakasalalay sa ating boto ang kinabukasan ngayon. So, wag po natin kalimutan na araling mabuti yung mga kandidato ngayong eleksyon at bumoto ng para sa Pilipinas. Walang iba kundi para sa Pilipinas. Maraming salamat.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for listening.